It's me, Santa Claus, coming to you live from the North Pole. I'd like to remind you to leave out that milk and those cookies, and to keep watching Brunswick area television. And I'll come to see you real soon.
Welcome to this month's Salute to Service and Merry Christmas. With me today I have Carl. How are you doing? Carl DeForest, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Fabulous.
U.S. Army veteran?
Roger that.
And I was going to say a native of Medina County, but you're not.
No, I actually grew up in Otsego County in upstate New York.
Otsego. That's up by, isn't that by Mexico, New York?
I've never heard of Mexico, other than one down there by Texas. But okay. Cooperstown, Norwich, Utica, an hour and a half away from Syracuse.
So by the Baseball Hall of Fame up there?
Yes, half an hour away from the Baseball Hall of Fame.
And you were talking a little about, before we were talking a little bit about Fort Drum.
Yes. Yeah, my last duty station was Fort Drum, New York, and I got there in February, and it was the coldest place I've ever been in my life. And they used to joke that there's two seasons here, winter and the 4th of July.
Right.
And my daughter was born in May, and it was snowing when she was in the hospital. And you get appreciable snow in May and again in October, so your summers are a little shorter.
I will tell you, I had lumps of snow in my yard still on Memorial Day when we lived
Yeah, I believe
there.
it.
So, you know,
I believe it.
So no doubt. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, what made you go into the service? Obviously, you picked the best branch, the Army branch. But...
Yes, I did. You know, my dad was in the Army. He was in the Korean War, and he talked about it a little bit, not a lot. And again, I grew up in a depressed area in upstate New York with a big family. We were so poor we couldn't pay attention. So after high school, I needed to do something. And I thought, well, I could serve my country and then travel a little bit, get a little experience. I chose military police as an MOS to give me some level of skill when I got out. And probably the best decision I ever made in my life.
Did you go in right out of high school?
I did. I went in a delayed entry program. I signed up in March of 1980 and went to basic training in July of 1980, about 3 weeks after I graduated from high school.
So, I mean, back in 1980, any intimidation about going into basic? Were you a little bit apprehensive about it? Was it a little scary?
All of the above, but I'd gotten good coaching from my dad and my brother-in-law, who was in the Navy. It's actually one of the branches of the military. They tell me, you know, go in, keep a low profile, don't let anybody know who you are. And so that was my plan until I arrived.
Can't imagine you doing that.
Well, I was getting yelled at as the bus was stopping at our unit area when we were pulling up from the reception station. And they made the first couple of days of my basic training experience a little challenging. But, you know, and you just never know. I mean, whether you're going away to college or you're traveling to a foreign land or whatever, you're going to basic training. You know, I thought it was a fabulous experience. You know, it's something I would highly recommend to anybody.
Where'd you go to basic at?
Fort McClellan, Alabama.
Okay. You know, I always had the perspective of there's hundreds of thousands of people that get spit out the other end of this, so it can't be that hard.
Yeah.
Not to say it wasn't, but you know, but I mean, you know, it can't be that difficult if all these other people do it. So I always figured out.
Very true, but they say it's something that once you get done with it, you look back and say, "Yeah, it wasn't that difficult. You want to do it again?"
No, thanks. And I'll tell you what, you feel pretty good about yourself when you accomplish some things that you do in the military.
Absolutely.
So was your AIT and everything at Fort McClellan?
Yes, it was one station unit training, so I had 8 weeks of basic training and 8 weeks of MP school. And then my first duty station was Germany. And what was nice was I got to sign up for a 2-year enlistment.
Okay.
Because recruiting wasn't doing real well in upstate New York. So they had a 2-year enlistment, which I think I'm the only person I've ever met who ever got a 2-year enlistment. So by the time I got out of basic and AIT, I had about a year and a half left. And my first duty station was Germany. And I went over there for about 18 months and re-enlisted after that.
What was your experience going to I mean, obviously, going to Germany, I mean, that might have been a little bit scarier than basic training at some point because you'd never been there.
Yeah.
What was your experience jumping on that plane and getting off at Ryan Mine?
Well, getting over there, 1980, was it DC-10s were dropping out of the air like they were supposed to, you know what I mean? And I'm like, what the? And so I'd never flown. The first time I had ever flown in a plane was going to basic training. And I thought, okay, well, I'm flying over the Atlantic. I better, look at the little card they give me. And I pull the little sunscreen down. I'm flying in DC-10. I'm thinking, well, I can't swim. I'm flying over an ocean for the first time. I don't know how this is going to work out.
Where's that life jacket at?
Yeah, how do I get out of this thing? But it was a different place to go. And, in 1980, you still had a lot of members in the military who were Vietnam vets, and they treated you very differently than folks are treated now, because it was, you got to prove your muster. You're not one of us until we say you're one of us. And so we had a lot of folks in my MP unit when I got to Germany that were.
Imagine all your section chiefs, platoon sergeants?
Yeah, platoon sergeant, yeah.
So where did you go into Germany? Where were you at?
I was in Schweinfurt.
Okay, big crossing.
Yeah, pig crossing.
I was stationed there.
And really, we got a lot in common. Yeah. And when I was there, they had the highest crime rate per capita in all of Europe. Yeah. And it was just a punch palace. And we would work 12-hour days and sometime work 45, 50 days in a row without a day off. So, when we ever got, 2 days off or we took leave, all we wanted to do is rest up for the next 35, 40 day stretch of work, I
remember the artillery unit, first of the dime, first in crime.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're always fighting with those rascals.
And Germany was a different military back early '80s, mid '80s, even late '80s, than probably the military in the United States, I think.
Because it seemed like, okay, you're going to go to a field rotation, then you come back, and all you're supposed to do is fight, and fight the police, fight the MPs, drink, and then get ready to go back to the field.
Well, they were going to the field, when the Cold War was going on, the units were going to the field every 90 days for 30 days. So, out of every 3 months, you were gone a month,
Yeah. So it was different. But it was, again, a great experience. I've got 2 kids, one's 32 and one's 26, and I told them years ago that I have very few regrets, but one of the regrets I have is I didn't travel a little bit more when I was in the military.
Yeah.
I was in Germany. Okay.
Were you married or single?
I was single.
Single.
I was single. And then my second duty station was Hawaii. I was Scofield Barracks for 3 years. And I'd have friends say, hey, you want to go to Maui? You want to go to Kauai? And I'd say, no, one rocks just like the other.
Yeah.
And I never left Oahu.
You regret it a little bit.
Yeah. So that's my one regret. And if I live old enough and that's my only regret, then I've lived a pretty good life. But
so you went from Germany to Hawaii?
Yes.
So 2 years or a year and a half in Germany, 2 years? How long were you there?
It was about a year and a half after I went to basic training in AIT. So I filled a 2-year enlistment in Germany, re-enlisted for Hawaii, spent 3 years there.
So when you went back to Hawaii, I know in Germany it had to be a little bit different because you were actually, out in the country being a policeman to the soldiers back then. Because, there was the SOFA agreement and all that, and we kind of policed ourselves.
Concurrent jurisdiction. We were able to go down in the cities and things of this nature.
Going to Hawaii, I would imagine you were more or less just an operational tactical unit.
And you're on post. And I was on Scofield Barracks, and you didn't leave the post chasing anybody, looking for bad guys or anything of this nature. You did traffic enforcement and responded to calls on post there. And it was very different because it was very laid back in comparison to Germany. And again, I mentioned we'd work 40, 50 days straight, 12-hour shifts, and I got to Hawaii, and somebody was complaining about working 9 days and getting 3 off. And I'm like, I don't know where you were before you came here, but working 9 and getting 3 off is a pretty good gig.
Well, in Germany, if you weren't out in the field as a tactical MP unit, you were actually working hand in hand with the Polizei a lot of times. Because if the Polizei got a GI, they called you guys.
We came and got them, took them to their unit, reported to their first sergeant or commander.
I think back, and I think that's one of the things the military misses today. Is I remember, the patrol. Every unit had its own patrol downtown. That was a duty as a senior NCO. You got a driver, and on Friday night you drove downtown. And we were kind of like the first defense before the MPs,
Yeah, get them out of here before the cops get
So we were supposed to catch our guys from the units and the bars that were doing bad things or going to get in trouble,
or in a
before the MPs
area.
did, or the Polizei did, because the Polizei, pretty much beat the crap out of them.
They put a knot on your head.
Yeah, so we were, but I think we've lost that somewhere, because that's where I learned. And some people may say, well, hey, they're grown men, you're babysitting, but you're not babysitting. You're kind of like learning you're there to help them and take care of people because, you know, I mean...
Yeah, and they're 18, 19, 20 years old. You know, I mean, it's just like going
yeah,
away to college. You're going to make
mean,
some bad decisions.
You know,
in the
no
front
parental
end.
control or anything like that at some point. I don't know. I think there's a leadership skill there that is lost today because, you know, you did learn that you take care of your people.
Yeah, I would agree.
And not babysit them, but, you know, you're there to make sure that, you know, they don't get in trouble or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, so how long in Scofield Barracks?
I was at Scofield Barracks for 3 years, and then I was trying to decide whether I was going to re-enlist or get out. And I thought, well, you know, I'll put in for drill sergeant school, and if I get drill sergeant school, I'll re-enlist. And I submitted my DA form 4187, and about 2 weeks after that, I'm thinking, well, why did I do that? I mean, that seems like a pretty hard job, and you know, I have to talk in front of people, boss people around. And about a month later, I got notice that I got accepted to drill sergeant school, so I re-enlisted another 3 years and left Hawaii and went to Fort McClellan, Alabama to drill sergeant school and spent 2 years as a drill sergeant turning civilians into soldiers, and it was the best job I ever had, hardest job I ever had. When you start working 110, 115 hours a week, which most people can't comprehend, you get a little tired, you get a little riled up, you know, but you're taking somebody who has the goal and aspiration of protecting our country and giving them an opportunity, and you're reforming their perceptions of right and wrong and real and unreal, and you know, changing their body, changing their attitude toward themselves and others, and it was a fabulous job.
And it's got to feel good when you see that shift of, you know, 140 guys or, you know, a platoon of 35 guys. You start to see that shift, not just in an individual, but in a group of people, because it happens.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it isn't overnight. It's a process. But one day you wake up and go, they got it.
Yeah, it starts clicking about week 4 or 5. You know, they start coming together as a team, and it doesn't matter whether you're from the Bronx or, you know, some small town in Iowa. You start saying, okay, we're in this together. You're my brother, and I'm going to help you. I'm going to pick you up. You know, I'll be there for you. And we've got a mission, and we're going to get it done, and we're going to look out for each other.
Let's talking with the young lady we had on last month about, you know, the military is one of the last great melting pots in America, really, I think. You know, I mean, you throw, you know, you have going in, you have opinions and, you know, that have been made or formed and told you about different people from all over the country. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a small room working, living with those people, and those opinions you had, in many cases, you realize are very wrong.
Yeah. Oh,
and you realize that we're all just Americans and, you know, people. I mean, you know, we all want the same thing.
A good point. I grew up in a small town in upstate New York, and just about everybody there was white, you know, just like me. And for the longest time in the military, I never had a best friend that was white. You know, they were either African American or Hispanic or Filipino, and they're still my friends to this day. And that gave me an opportunity to see the world through different eyes. And it was just, again, I said it before, and I'll say it a million times before I die. Best decision I ever made in my life. Great. I
remember I had a good friend. We're still good friends. He grew up in New York, and he didn't know how to drive. He said, "Well, nobody drives in New York. We take the bus." I'm thinking, man, you're 21 years old and you don't know how to drive. I mean, to me that was odd, you know, because growing up 16, man, you're licensed and everything else. And he was like, "Yeah, we couldn't afford to park a car in New York City. You know, it costs so much." But
and where I grew up, you didn't see a bus. There was a school bus. There wasn't a bus that could take you anywhere within probably 100 miles of where I grew up.
We taught him how to drive, and he got a driver's license. You know.
So,
so Fort McClellan, was that your last duty station before you got out? Or?
No, actually, I spent 2 years on drill sergeant status, and I was going to do a 3rd year drill sergeant status, and then I thought, well, you know, I wouldn't mind going to airborne school.
Okay.
And I called a friend of mine at the Department of the Army and said, hey, what if I put in a 4187 to go to airborne school? And he said, well, you can't do a drill sergeant status for 3rd year and airborne school. You got to pick one or the other. Right. So I said, all right, send me to airborne school, and I went to airborne school. Coming off drill sergeant status was a really unique experience. And then I went to Korea. So I spent a year in Korea, and my last duty station was Fort Drum, New York.
So they sent you to Benning for airborne school, and then sent you to you went over to Korea for that?
Yes. And the idea was I was supposed to return to Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Okay, I was going to say usually that late in your career they want you going back on. They want you on status.
Yeah, but again, it's a big bureaucracy, and I was in Korea for 6 months, and I called the Department of the Army. Hey, I haven't gotten my orders yet. Well, yeah, we don't know where you're going to go because you never made it through airborne school. I'm like, what are you talking about? I got my orders from the Department of the Army, my additional skill identifier, Papa 5, and all this. Well, we don't have those on file. I'll send them to you. So I'm in Korea sending the Department of the Army and mainland here my orders. I called 2 weeks later. We got them. We're going to put them in the computer. We'll get your orders to Fort Bragg in a couple weeks. Call back. So I call back, and the guy who I knew, he said, you're not going to believe this. We lost your orders. I'm like, how does that happen? And so he said, I apologize, but pick 3 places you want to go, and I promise you'll get to one. So I actually picked Fort Hamilton, New York. There's an Army depot in western New York somewhere, and Fort Drum, because I grew up in upstate New York. And had I known how cold it was, I probably would have gone to Fort Hamilton. But so they had goomered up my orders, or they would have sent me to an airborne unit at Fort Bragg. So I ended up at Fort Drum. And then it took me 6 months to convince the Army that I'd actually completed airborne training.
School.
So yeah, that was something.
How'd you like airborne school?
Hate it.
Really?
It scared the living hell out of me. And before I went to airborne school, there was a guy who was a senior parachutist. He said, you might want to take that drill sergeant patch off your uniform and your air assault wings off your uniform before you go to airborne school. And I said, well, I'm not taking them off because I've earned them. 13 weeks from a drill sergeant patch, 2 years on the trail, air assault wings, I earned those. He said, they're gonna give you a hard time. And they just beat the ever-loving hell out of me. They really and truly did.
So what rank were you? You were a staff sergeant.
I was a staff sergeant.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different going through because I went through as a staff sergeant. It's a little bit different as a staff sergeant as a private.
Yeah, you stick out a little bit.
Yeah.
They just wanted to make and again, so you're going to an infantry area, all these folks are infantry, the overwhelming majority of them, so they don't like me because I'm an MP. They don't like me because I'm air assault, and they don't like me because I'm drill sergeant. So I walked in there with 3 strikes against me, and they just beat the hell out of me. They really and truly did. I left there in a bad way, but I did my 5 jumps, got my airborne wings, and thought I was going to go to an airborne unit after that, and it just didn't happen.
So being an MP in Korea, was that similar to Germany, or was it similar?
Well, it was very different for me because I land in the reception station. I haven't slept for about 2 days, and I get a call to go down to this office and meet this Master Sergeant Thompson, and he says, well, I work at the 8th Army NCO Academy. Would you be interested in being an instructor? I'm like, sure, why not? And that was a PLDC,
right off of drill status,
Primary Leadership Development course. And it was a 4-week course. You got new students in, you got them ready to go, and you're teaching leadership to Spec 4s and E5s, and that was a great opportunity. So I really didn't get a flavor for the MP life there because I was an instructor at NCO Academy.
So you leave Korea and go back to Fort Drum. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right. Close to home.
It's where I retired out of. So great place. So what made you decide to get out of the service? What was the decision point?
I tell you.
You've been in, 10 years?
I've been in 10 years, and I called the same guy I knew at the Department of the Army. He was still there, the guys who messed up my orders there.
He's probably still there.
He's probably still there, Or he's like, hey, I hope Carl doesn't call back. And I said, hey, I'd like to re-enlist, but I'd like to stay at Fort Drum, if you can believe it or not, for a while before I rotate anywhere else. Because I knew folks that had been in Germany for 10 years. I knew people who'd been stateside for 10
over there
years.
For a while,
And a guy says, well, we need people like you in Germany. And I said, well, I'm telling you now, I had a little girl who was growing by inches and pounds. Every time I was deployed to Fort Bragg or going back to Germany for reforge or something. And I said, I want to settle down for somewhere and give my kid an opportunity to learn a community. And he said, well, if you re-enlist, we're going to send you to Germany. We need people like you. I said, well, you're going to have to send someone like me because you're not sending me because I'm going to get out. So I spent 10 years and 2 months in and loved 99% of it, and then I just transitioned to civilian life because I wanted to settle down somewhere.
So how'd you get to Ohio?
My now ex-wife.
Specifically Medina County.
Yes, my now ex-wife, who I won't say any more about, grew up in Brunswick.
Okay.
So I was getting out of the Army, and my option was stay in New York, because that's where I grew up, and I knew about New York, but it was a very depressed area, or come to Ohio. And Ohio, just south of Cleveland, pretty good economy back in the late 80s, early 90s. I thought I was going to work for Federal Express, and it was one of the top 500 companies in the United States at that time. So I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Mm-hmm. So actually moved back to Brunswick when I got out of the Army, and I've been here ever since.
So how did you obviously you didn't work for Federal Express, or if you did, it wasn't very long.
I worked there for a couple months part-time, because they only had part-time jobs at the time, and I was going to school part-time at Tri-C out in Parma, using my Veterans Education Assistance Program, the VEAP program, a horrible program that it was. And I was working at night. You know, I'd be work at 3 o'clock in the morning, work till 8 o'clock in the morning, and then get up and go to school. And then I'm thinking, man, this isn't working out ideally. And so December rolls around that year. I got out in September of 1990. I saw that Brunswick was giving an entry-level test for police officer. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take it, see how it turns out. And took it, finished number one on the test. They offered me a job, and been here. You can't
never
get rid
looked
of me.
back, huh?
Yeah, I've never looked back, and I've been with the city of Brunswick since March of 1991.
And so let's talk about your career. Obviously, so did your career as an MP affect your career in the civilian world?
Oh yeah, it absolutely did. Yeah.
Oh, you became a police officer, yeah. So
yeah.
So how did that leadership? What did you use? Not necessarily the police skills, because policeman's a policeman in some aspects, but how did the leadership in the military take you through your career all the way up the roles of the police and now as the city administrator?
I think you would agree with me that one of the most important lessons I learned in the military is when you get someplace, nobody cares who you are, where you've been, what you know. Mm-hmm. Shut up and listen,
right.
And learn from the folks that are there.
Right.
And so that's what I did when I got to Brunswick. I kept my mouth shut, learned the roles and duties and responsibilities, learned the city, learned who liked what, and and then you show deference and respect to those people who've been there before, the senior people, and study as hard as you can, work as hard as you can. And again, I went from an environment where as a drill sergeant, I was working 110 hours a week,
right.
Trying to make a living. So now I'm working 40 hours a week. Wow, this is great. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I got half
it's
a week off.
Much,
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like on vacation.
Well, I get to go home at 4:30.
Yeah, I'm out of here. And if you work over, you get overtime. Yeah. And that's a foreign concept in the military. Right. Obviously, there's 24 hours in a day, and you work every one of them. And so I just worked and worked and worked, and built a good reputation for myself. And took the test, studied hard. Got promoted to sergeant, lieutenant, chief, and went back to school, got my bachelor's degree in sociology, master's degree in public administration, and again, it was. I look back, and it was because of the determination and wherewithal that I learned in the military. It gave me those opportunities to be successful.
The military always gives you that drive to move to the next step.
Yes.
Not settle for where you're at or what. Obviously now, but you always want to strive to do better. Or because doing better for yourself does better for other people, obviously.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about Brunswick and what you do now in Brunswick. Obviously, Brunswick has some veterans programs, different things like that. I know the city itself does a lot for seniors and things like that. How has your military career or your experience and what you've done in the military shape what you do now for the city?
Well, it's given me a great base and an understanding that the people who went before us and the people who have served their country should be respected and give them some deference. So we started Veterans Breakfast 5 years ago. And people were suspicious when we first did it because people were suspicious to begin with.
Yeah.
But all we wanted to do was say thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your commitment to our country. I don't care, when I'm there, I don't care whether you're in the Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, Army. Because you served our country. You raised your hand, took that oath to defend the country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You did your time.
Right.
We developed a veteran outreach program through the police department where we check on veterans,
right.
Just to say, hey, are you doing okay?
Right.
And it comes with no level of expectation. Like, hey, we're going to check on you, and next time we have a levy, you need to vote for it.
Right.
There's none of that. There's no connectivity there. It's just,
simply
hey,
a hi.
Yeah, hey, how you doing? Come to our breakfast, which is. December, it was two months ago, and it was a fabulous opportunity to just say thank you and to give back.
It's always a packed house. I've been to most of them.
And I know that there's people who have left there and come up to me later and said, I sat at a table with a guy who was in Korea. He was in the Korean War, and he was talking about it. And I was in Afghanistan. I got some issues with PTSD, never received any counseling. I'm going to go to counseling because I know he did it and he made it through. So there's people who have actually been helped by being in that environment.
Right.
And again, we push out the information that, there's help for veterans. And if you need help, go see Ed. Ed
Right.
can steer you in the right direction and help you through that maze of regulations and policies to get things taken care of. So it's really just, being part of the community, giving back for the fact that you should give back.
Right.
You should help people because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not real complicated.
Yeah, I think the breakfast is a great opportunity in anything like that. I mean, I'm always amazed, and I always talk to one of the older folks, and they come up to me and they'll say, no one's ever said thank you or kind of like saw my service before, and this was a great thing for people. I feel like I've just been welcomed home. And it's just a small thing. We threw some eggs and potatoes on a plate and. And said the pledge and said thanks and had a breakfast as a bunch of vets.
Yeah.
And that one little thing that you do like that is like, it's like life-changing for some of these folks that no one's ever recognized how important their service to our country was.
Yeah, and the average member of the military doesn't see themselves as a hero.
No.
But they should still be thanked.
Right.
And I'll have people say, well, I probably shouldn't come to the veterans breakfast because I was never in combat. Well, neither was I. I was in the Cold War.
Right.
I would have fought if they sent me someplace. I went where Uncle Sam told me to go and did what he told me to do.
So you get people that, well, I was a cook, for 2 years. I
had to eat.
You did more than most people, I mean, there's 1% out there serves in our military nowadays.
Yeah.
So, and the military needs cooks. Yeah, I like to eat too.
I love to eat. I love to eat.
So any before we close out here, any last words or advice you would give to someone that's thinking about joining the military, or to a veteran out there that's looking for help or anything like that? Just words from Carl of
Well, if you're a veteran out there looking for help, first of all, thank you for your service. And second of all, we're here for you. Ed's here for you. I'm here for you. If you need anything, pick up the phone, stop by City Hall. We'll help you. We've helped a lot of people. And if we can't crack that nut, we'll find somebody who can, And if you need help, we want to get you help. If you're somebody out there looking at the military, I'd highly recommend it. It gives you life skills that you cannot get anywhere else, and you can fly around the world on Uncle Sam's dime, meet lots of neat people and have just fabulous experiences. Get yourself an MOS or military occupational skill that gives you a transferable skill when you get out. The GI Bill is a great opportunity to go back to school. And again, you'll have a lot more pride, A, in yourself, B, in your community, and C, in your country if you're a veteran, because you know why people serve.
Even if you are the cook for 2 years, it gives you a perspective of people and life that I don't think you'll get anywhere else.
I would agree.
Just the people you're going to meet.
100%.
So with that said, I want to thank you for coming on the show. One thing I ask everybody that's come on the show, if you had the opportunity to do it all over again and serve your country, would you do it again?
Hell yes. And hopefully everybody else says the same.
Carl, thanks for coming on the show. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. Let 211 be your guiding light for help with food, healthcare, and other resources.
211, how can I help you?
Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211, get connected, get help.
With Julia's autism, loud sounds can be too much.
But she still loves to make music.
Yeah.
Play band.
Early screening for autism can make a lifetime of difference. Find out more at screenforautism.org.